Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have our usual awesome friends and co-hosts and people that we're drinking beers with to watch this. I don't know even what to call it. It's an action film, sort of.
It's a revenge film.
It's a revenge
It
action.
is. Everyone's looking at me.
We're also
I'm not.
looking at you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Because,
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Well, as Dan said, I'm both usual and awesome. I'm Aaron. I'm your crayon-drawn map expert.
Ignoring how Aaron says crayon, I am Blake, your H. John Benjamin expert. He voiced Coach McGurk on Home Movies, and Bob from Bob's Burgers, and Archer from Archer.
What's wrong with how I say crayon?
You say it weird.
We'll talk about this later.
Welcome to Crayon and a Beer, everyone. This is Brian, your lovely co-host, and I am your Octo Thief expert.
So if
Stay
you're
away
wondering,
from my Frosty Puffs.
yes, we watched this strange film. I'm calling it strange because I think it was strange.
This movie of the year, Boy
Wild.
Kills World.
It's
Boy
wild.
Kills World.
Yeah.
So it presents itself one way at the beginning and in the trailers, and it is completely not that. We're going to try our best not to spoil.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty.
this
It's pretty
movie-
fresh. It's pretty new.
There's lots and lots and lots of flashbacks, violence, inner voice that's narrating it for him. 'cause
H.
he
John
can't speak.
Benjamin.
An internal monologue.
Internal monologue, and then lots of twists and turns that leave you guessing until the very, very end because you're
Indeed.
like morally ambiguous top to bottom.
Yeah.
And I would say it feels like a mashup between a comic graphic novel, a superhero, and a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Superhero film and a video game.
I could easily see this as a side-scrolling beat 'em up, just going through waves of enemies.
Well, so the main character
Boy.
he goes by Boy. He's never actually called his proper name. The sister, the parents,
Mina is the sister.
you're presented with these characters, but then you find out partway through that maybe everything's not what it is seeming to be. So it's questionable. It's
Well-
not a spoil. I'm just
Aaron
giving
has
you
his
fair
hand-
warning.
Aaron has his hands
Things
on
are
his hips.
strange.
Let's lay out the basic initial premise of the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
So-
let's start there and end there because this. I'm not an action movie fan, but I did enjoy this movie, and I feel like if we were to plot spoil anything in here, that would rob our audience. It would do an absolute disservice to them because the plot twists are what make this movie enjoyable. I thought
agree.
I thought that this was going to be just a straight action movie, and that we were just going to be watching fight scenes that kind of had no meaning to them because we've got maybe 6 minutes of backstory to introduce who the characters are and what their motivations are, and then the action starts. And I've seen that kind of movie before. I'm sure everybody, like dear listener, I'm sure you've seen that kind of movie before, where 6 minutes of intro, and then you get 90 minutes of just Kill Bill.
Lots of
Well,
squirting.
let's not
But it's
tear
this-
down Kill Bill. But I know what you're talking about.
Well,
where,
I mean,
where the introduction is.
You don't watch Kill Bill because of character development. You watch Kill Bill because you want to see somebody get messed up.
Oh,
Or you want to
right.
see somebody doing the
Correct.
messing up.
I watch Kill Bill because it is Quentin Tarantino, and, he
And
has a
Uma
particular.
Thurman. We watch it for Uma Thurman.
He has a particular style of storytelling.
so
We're
we
not here
also,
talking about Quentin
but we also
Tarantino.
drank some beer.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, let's get into that before we do a
Digress.
synopsis.
the
Digress a
rails.
little bit more. So we were just very recently, just before we watched the film, down at John's Marketplace in Southeast Portland, as we have a few times in the most recent past, and enjoyed some great food from the food carts and picked out some beers. We ended up going with a couple based on name and kind of the design of the can. We have Bad Hombre from Level Beer, and then we have 42 Sins from Oak Union. So my preface to the film was only what I'd seen in the trailer.
Right.
So I was like, oh, it's a redemption story or a revenge story. So both of these kind of played into it a
Bill
little bit.
Skarsgård kicks a lot of ass.
Well, actually, I didn't watch the trailer before we watched this, and some of our listeners may not have seen the trailer either. Can you describe like the elevator pitch of the trailer and like?
Sure. So basically it prompts it with him as a young child.
Okay.
The shaman
Boy is
training
boy.
him. He's training him for like 15 minutes. And it like
kung fu training, martial
Yes.
arts training.
So the premise is there's a society that's run by an autocratic family.
Yeah.
And every year they have a culling similar to the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And this boy's family was killed by the autocratic family.
That's how it's presented.
So now the boy is training.
And he's saved by the shaman, a martial artist, who teaches him how to be a killing weapon as a
His sole
tool
purpose is to
to
kill-
knock out the autocratic family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the premise. And that's really how the movie goes for a vast majority of it. And so you're not going to be disappointed if you're expecting that going in. I think the trailer does a good job in presenting that. It doesn't really plot spoil anything. It's just, he trains, he's got the great voice. And I think
it's one of the few trailers that pitches, here's what the pitch is. And it's a little bit different from what you got, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of movies will pitch you, oh, we're actually column A, but it turns out it's column B, and nobody wanted column B, but we were told we were getting column A.
You mean like Napoleon being a romance movie?
That and how Wonka and Mean Girls was a musical, and no one had any idea because they had no music in the trailer.
Yeah.
But this movie, you saw what you were going to get, like
badass
action, beautiful martial arts. We can get into cinematography later.
Yeah.
And H. John Benjamin being a key voice who has a very dulcet, low, nice voice to listen to, and as the inner monologue of Boy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting. He talks to his younger sister as he remembers her throughout the film, and that's shown in the trailer as well. So there's a little girl that he imagines and hallucinates, and his thing is she guides him. She tries to help. That's the part of his brain going, you should still be good. You shouldn't just go kill
his
everyone.
Jiminy Cricket, if you will, his conscience.
His conscience.
And like memory of younger sister as conscience feels like a comic book trope to me.
Yeah.
Like, you've got this person that keeps you on the morally correct or ethically right path.
He tries to put her in a little, storage locker. I'm going to put you in here. Just stay here. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'm going to stop being my moral compass.
Yeah.
I need to go kill people.
Yeah.
Despite how adorable your ninja butterfly costume is.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that was pretty
cute. You don't know
cute.
anything about butterflies. You don't know how they work.
Right.
And then there are some really fun moments in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Deadpool in that it doesn't take itself real seriously, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The action, it's less jokey, chatty, and wink, wink to the audience, which is a very Deadpool thing, and more so, like, the action stays on the screen with the other characters. Like, everything's happening within the film, and the protagonist, I can't tell if it's a unreliable narrator or if we're just being swapped from his point of view to the audience gets to see, because we had a whole running gag of, I can't tell what this guy's saying.
No, I think
he has to read lips because he's mute and deaf. So he has to read lips, and up until a point, he's like, okay, I know what's happening. I have a general idea. But people are looking away from him and talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the only complaint I have, really, is, well, how can he know what's going on? Or is it
Yeah, I noticed that as we're because
our point of view now?
Right. And I think, we as an audience do know sometimes a little bit more than the protagonist does. But there's always a reason, a storytelling reason for that.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
But I mean, I did see kind of, if you're thinking about immersion or suspension of disbelief, I agree with you, Blake, because there are moments where there's a character facing away from the protagonist. How is he reading their lips then? He can't be.
And a lot of those I don't notice because I think, well, cinematically, this makes sense. This framing makes sense for them to look at the other person while he's tied up. But we hear them, but he may not need context. He may not need context to get out of there and beat people up.
I do want to say that, I mean, for a character that's deaf and mute, who doesn't actually articulate lines, really, there's still a lot of storytelling, still a lot of character progression.
The acting was very good.
Bill Skarsgård's a good physical actor.
And the internal monologue that we were privy to helped a lot.
Yeah.
So how does that work then? Because I know, don't you get paid by the line? And he didn't say anything the whole movie.
I mean, he's a big enough name, it may not matter.
I'm sure their
he just had
contract.
He played Pennywise.
A flat price.
What happens is you have to be paid scale at minimum from the Screen Actors Guild. Yeah. But if usually you'll be contracted if you're a major player in a film, and usually it's way more than scale.
Yeah.
I mean, back when I was directing student film, scale was like $1,200 a day.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's way more than this. But if you're getting $1 million for the film or $500,000 for the film, that's
more than
hundreds and hundreds of days of shooting.
Also, part of the trivia is Skarsgård did his own internal monologue in a more raspy Batman kind of voice, but it didn't test well. So they got someone who has a storied history with voice acting.
IMDb said it was like a bit like Sam Elliott, like that kind of effect. Imagining what that would be, and then like hearing what it actually was. This was a good choice.
Yeah.
To have So, dear listener, the narrator is actually like the narrator from an arcade game.
Yeah.
The fight announcer, the round one fight.
Yeah, and so it's this video game announcer that our protagonist remembers from a very early age, very early memory.
Yeah.
That's
a core memory.
Like that's narrating as everything that he's doing. And
I'm going to get in there and I'm going to have to beat these guys up. This is something.
Or like, oh yeah, I don't understand it, but this is a good plan. It must be a good plan.
Yeah,
But what about
smiling.
them macaroons?
Oh my god, this is so good. A macaroon. Oh my god.
Oh my god, this is strawberry, right? And so you hear this like really like this voice with this kind of like edge and gravitas to it,
To a very lean, very like sculpted body, but very lean, lanky, skinny fighter man.
younger
Yeah.
guy, but and the voice doesn't match the person, but that's kind of
That's what makes it good.
Yeah.
It's what makes it good. But I think this movie has a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of the it's not exactly a joke. I don't want to call it a joke, but it's kind of one of the winks.
Yeah, it has a sense of humor. I think it also shows when Brian mentioned it feels like the Hunger Games. Like it feels like they read the books and went, well, this is ridiculous. Let's make fun of this. Like it's very much the Hunger Games. They point out how it's broken later. We're not going to spoil it, but they get into, oh, this system doesn't work, but we got to keep doing it. Or
Yeah, we
things go
ran
bad.
out of people.
we ran out of people, but we have to keep doing the thing, so we're going to do it.
We have sponsors. We got to keep doing it. And that's a thing. It's like it was all corporate. It was about we got to keep the sponsors going. And it's like a cereal company sponsoring the murderers. It's awesome. And that's it shows that
peak
in
commentary
the
a little
trailer.
bit.
It shows that in the trailer.
Right.
That's part of the ad campaign. Is like the silliness of Krusty Puffs or whatever.
The internal monologue of him. He says 3 things he has to do. He's like he has to train. He has to do these things. And one of them is survive. Cereal mascots trying to kill him.
I just want to like deviate for a moment and say there's this like. It's not quite like a holiday special, but it is almost like a holiday special that's encapsulated within this movie.
It was very snowy.
And like the character, it almost felt like Elvis Presents Christmas.
Yeah, it kind of had that vibe.
And like, I loved like the corporate mascots and like the dancing and like the songs and stuff they had for this event. Like that, what a phenomenal like bit of world building and culture that they created.
Yeah.
Essentially just for like 10 minutes on screen. But like, oh man, the costumes and the corporate mascots that were there, it felt all like this parallel universe that was true to life.
Yeah.
That was like down to every detail.
And, it contrasted really nicely with the kind of the poverty on the streets of the society outside. This holiday special was clearly a veneer,
right?
That they were trying to show how the ruling classes felt about the society.
Yeah,
but the reality of the people was much different.
A stratification between the elites and then kind of everybody else.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I feel like this is a good segue to get into. I want to talk about color a little bit.
Yeah,
Sure.
Because the poverty world was very like yellows, grays, tans, beiges. The studio audience like
enforcers were yellow.
Yeah.
Enforcers did have a bright yellow and black motif.
And I want to say, like, it was a floral design that kind of almost reminded me of, like, not Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a white 5-petaled flower on a red background. This was a yellow 4-petaled flower with a stem on a black background. Vaguely Hong Kong, yes, but
maybe
not quite.
reminiscent, maybe
Somewhat, yeah, a little bit, but
the colors in the studio were very bright and stark contrast. It feels reminiscent to me of Star Wars, where the good guys are in like earthen tones and the bad guys are all stark colors.
Well, you had mentioned as we're watching it, like he takes
has his
a
red
vest,
his
off,
red
of,
vest.
off of someone that he kills.
No. That guy was just dead in the trunk.
Oh, was he? Okay.
The monologue goes,
yeah.
"Oh boy, dead body."
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
yeah, that was somebody
Just some
that was
random person in the trunk.
random dead body that was.
Well,
And I tried to figure out
that
'cause
was
he had
actually
red.
the first guy that the spokesperson shot.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
that's what that was.
yeah.
Okay, I missed that.
He was trying to shoot somebody and missed and shot someone else. So
Oops.
it's like, oops.
A lot
So
of oops moments in this movie.
yeah, the first of many.
and there is, I guess the advice would be take all the characters at face value, but know that there's twists and turns in this. So
yeah.
I would definitely
That are really
understand-
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
and
Agreed.
caught me completely off guard.
Yeah.
We had
Likewise.
some theories
Likewise.
cooking, and then as they were revealed, we all just went, "Wow, okay."
And
Yeah.
then we actually had to like take a few minutes and talk and like figure out the implications of what we were seeing. Like it was like, oh, wait a second. So like hold on, this changes what we were
I can't hate that character anymore,
perceiving.
but I can hate that other one over there.
right. Yeah, well, I mean,
I can
it's
hate
almost
whoever I
like well, it's kind of like you remember like Game of Thrones where they would tell the same story from like the Lannister point of view later, and then you're like, oh, there's this whole other side I didn't see. It's that almost that same sort of shift of gravity, in my opinion. I will say I didn't love this film, but I certainly enjoyed it a lot more than other action movies of the same kind of genre, and it's because of these plot twists.
Yeah, it
that
has a lot-
I don't want to spoil.
It has a lot more story and a lot more steak versus sizzle on it than a lot of action movies. Like
Yeah.
I like watching a Fast and Furious movie. There's not a lot of story. It's it's Vin Diesel and his pals
No,
driving cars.
it's very morally ambiguous by the end of the film.
Yeah.
It makes you
And
care
there's
about
some
the characters.
really interesting things to think about.
Yeah.
And actually, I like that much better where there's this gray area. And
Mm-hmm,
you know, at one point it was like, oh man, is it a spoiler for me to say that there's no good people in this movie?
No,
Like,
they're
Not
all
really.
bad.
I think
There's
that's
all
fine.
bad.
I think that's okay.
I mean, the
All right.
people that are being oppressed, I'm being oppressed.
yeah.
They're being oppressed and shot at. And
I didn't vote for you. Right. But I was going to
What
say,
sort of
I
system
think-
is it to determine from a sword from a lake? Sorry, go ahead.
but I enjoy, actually I like that it's mixed, and I like that there's these like moral gray areas, because
Yeah.
so often there can be movies that me to feel like a little overly simplistic, where it's like there's, you know, black and white, there's the good guys and the bad guys, and the bad guys are bad just because, like, and they're not given any reason or motivation for why they're bad. They're
What if
just-
everyone's actually bad and it's who's more bad?
and you know,
I'm bad, I'm bad, you know it.
and
And that's
here-
actually
Mona.
referenced, and that's actually like there's some weird references in this movie as well.
Well, I want to do a quick shout out to the screenwriters, Tyler Burton Smith for the screenplay, Aaron Remmers and Moritz Moore for the screen story / short film. So it's apparently based on a short film these guys made. Moritz Moore, who did the short film, directed it. So names I've never heard of, fresh voices in this world of like people saying Tarantino's and Spielberg's and all that. Your A24s. I like that we got some new people doing a movie with like a lot of big names like Brett Gelman, Famke Jensen,
lots of
Bill Skarsgård. Like
yes.
it's great.
Good casting,
cast.
really good casting. I want to say, from a staging standpoint, it's almost all completely soundstage. I don't think there was anything not on a soundstage. The sets were really simplistic, and I like that because it didn't detract. There's no like special technology shit going
pretty
on.
minimal
There's-
CG,
it's just
right? Like-
guns. It's just handguns.
Yeah,
There's
but,
some
like,
CG that's really obvious, but that's okay.
Oh, like, we talked about the opening.
Well, there's
panning
a few,
shot.
Yeah, there's some fireworks and explosions that happen a few times to distract you from what's going on the screen. The actual editing of it, there was a lot of fast cuts in some of the fight scenes, and then some extended
Yeah, I
scenes.
mean,
So it was a mix.
I think we should talk about the fight choreography
God,
because
please,
it was
I would love
excellent.
to.
it was really good.
They,
There's
they did they were some cuts that were not so fast. We've talked about on here before about how if you see a lot of cuts in a fight scene where you can't tell what's happening, that means it's bad choreography.
Yeah.
Here, there were a lot of fast cuts, but we could see what was happening. It was not a robots punching robots moment. It was we can follow the action. We know what's happening. We can see our protagonist is fighting.
And
June
there were
27,
several
I think it
moves
was.
from both characters
Yeah.
in the same shot.
Right.
So that was choreographed. They had to practice
Yeah.
those moves so they wouldn't hurt each other.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even if they were swinging rubber.
So imagine, over the shoulder
Or
from
throwing
one
each other
yeah.
off of tables into each
Yeah.
other. God, what a cool.
Yeah,
what a
show
cool-
it over the shoulder from one perspective
Yeah.
for, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, which is a long time when you're doing action.
Oh, yeah.
And then it would cut to a side view of the exact same scene, just that side view. So it really wasn't necessarily a cut. It could have been a stop. Let's take a break. Let's get back into pose and then go from there. But
yeah, I was just
it
going to say,
seemed very, very realistic.
every one of those cuts in a fight scene, the continuity team on this film, like they nailed it every time, because
Agreed.
every cut in a fight scene, the positioning of the characters was spot on.
Oh, yeah.
And it felt very natural that like the only thing that seemed to shift for the audience is like your point of view. The fight is unfolding in front of you, and the characters' movements all feel really natural, even if the scene cuts and jumps from one point of view to another. But the continuity, I feel like in movies, continuity, often you can only really notice it if somebody really messes it up really badly.
Yeah.
But here, it's like I felt like I could follow the action, and I knew what was going on and who was moving where through every fight.
Exactly, yeah.
That was happening, even if like there was a cut in the middle of it and your point of view shifted. like sometimes it can get confused in some. I don't have any examples at hand, but like lesser quality. Or, if the continuity isn't quite as crisp, it can be harder to follow the action. And I didn't think that was the case in any part of this movie.
And I'm sure that's part of why they gave him a red vest and had the leader of the police force in her yellow jacket, yellow and black, with the helmet, with the dope helmet with the
crop top.
LCD.
Yeah.
I mean, the crop top didn't hurt,
Yeah.
but the cool motorcycle helmet with the LED displays.
Yeah, LED display. on
I
it.
love that stuff. It feels so appropriately
It's
post-apocalyptic punk vibes.
It's
kind
not,
of
but
like a little bit.
it's
like cyber.
It's more
cyberpunk a
it's
little
more
bit.
cyberpunk than I would say than steampunk because there was
Oh no,
it was
yeah,
nothing
it's
old.
not steampunk.
It's
no,
not steampunk.
But it's crisp and
It,
neon.
it has that very cyberpunky kind of vibe with the helmet that would say things that she's going to
Yeah.
say, but it just shows what she's saying.
But it's almost like an accessibility thing because if you think
Yeah.
of somebody who's normally reading lips,
Yeah.
they can't do that with somebody.
Oh
in
my
a
god, I never
motorcycle
thought
helmet.
about that.
It's an
Well,
right.
And
love
I
that.
think it's interesting that both of those characters, the antagonist and the protagonist, both had communication issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Boy, what a fun movie. What a well-made movie.
So I
And
was I was gonna ask about the simple fact that there's a few scenes that utilize a lot of chopping off of things, and there's a number of scenes during the initial when he's told not to go engage, and he goes and engages and runs off, and then he starts fighting, where he's thrown weapons that don't have any ammo because you're in an armory.
happens at least
that's
twice.
there-
It has to be 3
that
times.
There's like, like dudes are trying to help you, but there's no ammo. We're gonna throw you a weapon. And you can use it as a
Like a club.
Yeah,
as a
but
club
or
or throw it at
projectile.
people.
he's at the factory that makes guns, not
Yeah.
at the factory that makes
the
ammo.
bullets.
Right.
Yeah.
You just gotta go to the bullet farm.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't heard that one before.
Bomb.
But so chopping things off and squirting, there's a few scenes that are a little gratuitous, and I don't know.
Just a few.
Well, no, I mean there's violence, but
Let's
it's not
see.
gory,
I'm thinking about
gratuitous violence, except for a few times.
Thinking about the thing dropped on the head. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about the slice.
Oh, yeah,
and the slice
no.
and the chop and the slice.
This movie has individual scenes that have a higher body count than whole films. Like
Yeah. Well, I would say it's inconsistent. There are some scenes that the violence is almost Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, it's cartoonish.
Yeah.
There's some that are so violent that it becomes comical.
Yeah.
And then there's some scenes that are just gross.
There's not freeze frames. There's lingering shots during the beautiful choreography where I think at one point a dude had 2 hooks in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they
Rip them apart.
Yeah, but they take the camera view away from him right before, like
Yeah.
right after or before it, so you don't see it, but you get the
well, you see some of the splatter and the effect.
your head fills in the actual effects. So they don't have
Yeah.
to worry about the NC-17. Right?
So not appropriate for kids.
Not
not-
even. I wouldn't
no.
even. Teenagers wouldn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
this is
I think
pretty
teens are
hardcore.
into it.
There's no language. There's very little language. If
Not a
any.
lot of language.
There's
Mostly
no
violence
nudity.
and-
It's just violence and moral
Does Brett
ambiguity.
Gilman's character swear a lot? I can't recall.
There's a little bit, but not much.
Not
I
a
mean,
lot.
seriously, there's not a lot of.
lot.
There's not a lot of swearing.
I have trouble imagining the viewer that finds language to be the issue with this film. Like,
Well, I'll take whatever violence you can throw on me, but don't say a dirty word.
right,
All right.
right.
Well, so some of it is cartoonish. I'm
Oh
like,
no, yeah,
seriously, it's like
well,
you.
It's
the
an
dude's-
unreliable narrator.
So did he imagine, or was it actual? Because we had talked about this when the scene happened, when he first engages with the soldiers.
I genuinely-
and the dude like keeps sniffing or using a vaping tool.
Drugs. Yeah.
What was
Is
that
it
guy's
drug
name?
driven?
Dale?
Yeah,
Dave. It was
Dave.
Dave. Dave has
Dave has
problems.
issues.
Oh,
Dave has
R.I.P.
issues.
Dave has issues. 'cause
Spoilers.
Dave
R.I.P.
won't-
Dave.
Yeah, Dave won't die. Dave kept coming back
I'm a little disappointed they didn't follow that whole
Yeah.
line of like, what is that stuff?
because obviously it's something.
I thought it was gonna be a big plot point. It just kind of never
mean,
got mentioned again.
I
Stuff in the
what
background.
what I read between the lines is that the security force are drug addicted, and it's something that suppresses pain.
Oh, I
so
never
it's like
thought
it was
about
like
that.
putting your goon squad on meth, and then withholding the meth to keep them in line.
What's funny is you saying that now makes me think. Well, we see the protagonist presumably smoking something similar.
Yeah,
and he's just
like-
going through getting parts ripped apart and just
The shaman, I
going
think,
through hell.
really liked opium. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
totally sure, but
yeah.
like the shaman had something too.
Yeah, there were a few scenes where he's just daydreaming and he gets the smoke blown in his face and it's now like the teeth fall out and start dancing around. Yeah, that's not a plot spoil. That's funny.
I think it's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
it's
some
also.
funny-
I think it's also in the first 10 minutes of the movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, the teeth get up and dance, and they're talking, and they're having like a little. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. That's
what I
like,
thought it was gonna
I was thinking
be.
like they're having a little salsa dance party down there, But yeah, like no, so I guess there's drug references in this
Yeah.
movie.
A lot of drug
It's
references.
an undetermined drug that you. It looks like a vape, which sucks, but it looks
It
kind of.
almost looks like an asthma inhaler, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Actually, you're right. Yeah.
It really did. And there's been other sci-fi fantasy films that have that kind of thing that the troops do that just to keep them going.
Shoot, the Batman. He takes what looks like venom and gets all like hulked out.
I mean, in real life warfare, that's
what
also
they would
happens.
do, yeah.
The Nazi Blitzkrieg, they were amped up on amphetamines in the drive to France,
Weed.
so that they could go for 48 hours. The first 48 hours.
I could
was
see.
important.
I could see the screenwriters and
And
filmmakers
our
refer-
fighter
that-
pilots also were on
Yeah, they were.
amphetamines.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
to
win the
keep
war.
going.
Time to get some meth.
Yeah.
I could see them using that as a reference point for just parts of this movie. This movie seems to take a lot from a little bit of everything.
Oh, so going back to him wearing the red vest,
Yes,
and
yes.
nothing else being red except for the lipstick that gets
and
put on
and
him,
the
and
and the
then-
one sister.
The one
Yeah.
sister was
Mel-
all in
Melanie
red.
Vander-
A
also.
sister in the
That was
ruling
literally
family.
I don't
only
know.
red.
I don't know. I was trying to figure out the connection. I mean, I guess we know one. I don't want to say it, but
Blood
it's
is
not
red,
direct.
Blake.
That's
Blood.
true.
Blood is red.
Uh-huh.
She is kind of willing to kill anyone to make her show work,
Yeah.
and he's willing to kill whatever. I guess that's the reference.
Yeah.
Because the big leader is wearing white that's almost see through, like she's a skeleton.
Chiffon.
I think it was just a power color. It was a differentiator to identify this
okay.
is a key character.
I like that.
They're the only
She's
ones.
pure, just like a bride.
Keep telling yourself that.
Brian, you're a bride. You're our. I don't.
Our
know.
beer
That's why I'm
bride.
always in white.
He's
I can't
our
think.
beer
I can't
bride.
say the three dirty things that popped into my head. So whatever.
Dan
our
will
next,
bleep him out. It's fine.
I don't want to make Dan
All
do all
right,
that work.
so this has been a really interesting film to watch from the perspective of we've seen other action films that are
Yeah.
pretty cut and dry, story driven. There's
seen good
this
ones,
has
bad
beginning,
ones,
middle, and
middle
end.
of the road.
There's been a lot of flashbacks in this film though that really screws up the narrative for the viewer because you're like, okay, it sets the stage. And again, we're not going to spoil it, but pay attention.
It
'Cause
makes an
there's-
unreliable narrator,
yeah.
which I love in a film. I love
Yeah.
not knowing where we are for certain. I love questioning: is this person actually on the level, or what's happening?
Is he imagining?
But it
everything,
makes
or
sense. I
just
mean,
what's in
he
front of him?
clearly has been through trauma.
Yeah,
We
of
could
course.
say he's got PTSD for sure. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of accurate that his memories, his flashbacks, may not be accurate.
And they're not
Yeah.
often. And I'm just going to
Dan.
say that
My
ugh.
only concern is if they try to make a sequel and they did tell you, oh, the flashbacks you saw, not the right flashbacks. We have new flashbacks, which would make the sequel horrible and really taint this movie.
Yeah. I don't think it needs. I mean, so there was.
I don't want a sequel.
There
This is
was a
perfect.
post-credit scene that has absolutely nothing to do with.
It's just it's a nice
funny,
little
silly
button.
thing.
Nice
So,
little button.
so if you're watching it
It
online,
answers a
you can-
question that was lingering at the end. I think.
Yes. Does he ever get to actually eat cereal? Yes. Do the mascots try to kill him? Yes. He eats their cereal and enjoys it. Yes.
Does he play a video game? Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of eating,
Yes.
we had something to drink.
Consumption. So,
I did have to chew my beer. Was your all's beer okay?
Yeah,
Let's all go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby.
All right, so
ourselves a drink.
This is the time in the podcast we're going to talk about beer for a moment. Or
Oh,
five.
boy.
We watched this great film. We knew what we were going to watch ahead of time. We went down to John's Marketplace and we're like, oh, we should pick something out. I had a few options already, but I was not terribly thrilled with them. I was like, all right, we could do these or we could find something else.
Once Brian, Aaron, and I digested our burritos, we came to the rescue and helped
Yes,
out.
because I was struggling trying
I'm
to be
still
like, all right.
digesting that burrito.
The first one that we had was by Level Beer, and we've had a lot of different beers from Level. This is Bad Hombre, which is a beer they've made seasonally, but it changes seasonally. So
I'm
this
not sure
is
if I've
the-
ever had it before.
This initially was a Vienna lager, and now it is a Mexican style lager. there's a bunch of marketing copy on here, and there's a bunch of other fun stuff. Aaron, do you want to lead us off? I can tell us that it is 4.8%.
Where is the marketing copy? Oh, there we are.
Well, there's a square that says
There's a lot of writing. I don't know if it's marketing copy.
This easy drinking style of beer is made popular in Mexico. Light-bodied, crisp, clean malt character with mild corn flavor. Goes great with the lime. 1 pint, 3.5 ounces, blah, blah, blah. Happy, malty, bitter, sour. Oh, hoppy. It is a happy beer.
I mean, I am happy.
It was
drinking
not
this.
real hoppy.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
Well, the hoppy is low. Like Aaron's reading off the levels.
These are like
The actual-
sliders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There's a
and they're
slider
all-
left to right, low
it's
to
very
high,
low.
Yeah,
and everything is low. So it's
Everything's
not
low.
hoppy. It's a little malty, but that's the corn. It has a corn flavor because this is an
I'd agree with
adjunct
that.
Mexican lager.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have corn in it.
And it is very true to style as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
the bitterness is
with
there a little
hops.
bit, but then drops off really fast.
I didn't
and
even catch any
then
bitterness
there's
drinking it.
Zero sourness. It's like corn water.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's like a Corona or a Estrella or a,
Yeah,
I will say I don't think it really lined up with the movie.
not at all.
I have more thoughts about the second one, but the first one, it was good. It was really tasty. But I remember just thinking, I'm drinking this beer, I'm watching this movie. It never really synced up for me.
It didn't.
This is a beer I'd have on a beach in like a
Yeah.
happy setting with like
Yeah.
not a
or
repressed
backyard
out of-
barbecue.
Yeah,
yeah.
Have this in one hand, throwing a frisbee with the
in
other.
San Diego.
This isn't the beer you take to bring down an autocratic government.
No.
This is a beer you drink if you're going to watch a road comedy, honestly.
Yeah. So Bad Hombre, great name, and
Yeah.
it's got like
Nice
a great,
beer.
And the lead character is a
Nice
bad
beer.
hombre.
He is very bad, and we got this as a torpedo, so it's not a tall boy; it's the extra large tall boys.
We launched it at U-boats.
Yeah. You don't win them all. I was excited to try this with the movie because I hadn't had this version of Bad Hombre. I had the Vienna Lager version. And while, yes, it was good, again, I also agree. I don't think it really matched up with what we were watching, even though there was a lot of flashback and montage stuff going on. It didn't detract from the movie, but it was
yeah,
kinda
it
like,
just didn't quite line up.
I wanted something to highlight and kind of express what I was watching on the screen in my mouth.
You know what? Speaking of what highlighted this movie, Dan,
What's that?
we should talk about that second beer.
We should.
The second beer wasn't the highlight of this
go
movie.
ahead.
Like, jeez, Blake. Okay,
We're
42
trying.
Sins.
I'm trying to lead Dan into it. I'm trying to
42
segue.
Sins is our next beer.
Yes.
It's from a beer company
Called-
called Oak Union.
Oak Union Brewing, which is down sort of in Southeast Portland.
It's a
I
dry
wasn't ready
hopped
for Aaron to
pale
drop the ball
ale.
so hard.
Yes, it's dry hopped, so it's a pale ale. It's at 5.2% and not above 6%, so thus not an IPA but a pale ale.
Dan, I know we've talked about this. I apologize for forgetting. Can you remind me what dry hopped means?
So what dry hopping is after you've done your initial fermentation, or
It's
even
when you
secondary
hop around
fermentation.
on a sunny day.
Hop around.
It's not
Yeah.
raining.
Hop around.
Hop around.
I love
Up
that
and get
song.
back
Up
yeah.
and down, hop around. All right, so
Okay, question answered.
You take your hop product
So
or
post-
you're bittering with.
post-fermentation.
Post-fermentation, you're putting it in another vessel so there's no more yeast on it because you don't want
Okay.
their interaction. You just want to get
More flavor.
more flavor. And what dry hopping does is give you aromatics. And when we open this beer, everybody's like, "Ooh, yeah, it's
Hold
got
on.
a
So
lot
you're
of
literally
notes."
dropping just dry hops into the fermented stuff.
It's
Correct.
like an infusion, like tea.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
That helps me out now, and it'll help any new listeners whom I've never heard an early episode where I asked this the 19 other times.
Yes, the term dry hopping just means, and you're not adding any more IBU or bitterness to it. You're just
Right.
adding aromatics and maybe a
Interesting.
little vegetal flavor because you're dropping leaf matter, dried
Right,
leaf matter,
right.
or wet
Leaf bombs.
leaf bombs into this liquid, and so it's going to dissipate and it's going to kind of do its thing. Hops only really add any alpha acidity or any IBUs if they're at a boil temperature. They have
Okay.
to be able to break down that chemical bond. And if it's not at that temp, it's going to just release the oils that are surface oils, which can give you those aromatics. So when you
Interesting.
open it, this is why you always want to pour into. If you drink it out of the can, that's fine. But if
Which
you do
we
pour
did.
it, which most of us did, because it was like, wow, this is really strong. You
him
didn't
yum.
need to pour it into a glass. But if you do, again, you get that aeration a little bit. You get
Okay.
the CO2 reacting with the less volume to more volume. So there's less, surface surface.
Area.
I guess I would try to say PSI. There's less surface tension above the bubbles than below.
Right.
So it's going to release itself. It's going to go, oh, hey, I'm free now. Instead of being contained in a container that's, compressed with air.
Very cool. Thank you, science expert Dan.
As a non-hop head, I was okay having this in the can and not aerating more because I found it to be really like
Really strong.
well there was a lot of kind of vegetal hoppy element to it. Like,
Those would call it dank.
I'm too old to use that word in that way. So
It's not moist.
No,
it's
not in that
dank.
way. Dank in the fun way is like, oh, dude, that kickflip was dank, bro.
I can't use it that way either. You're just
gosh.
misunderstanding how old I really am.
Well, Dan's describing an actual biological phenomenon, and you're being an old fuddy duddy.
Dankness. Dankness is not a sin. So this is 5.2.
No, there's 42 sins in this.
40. So the thing is this is at 42 IBU, and I think that's why they're calling it 42 sins, because they're really pushing. It's got rare North Star pills, white wheat, Weyermann, Vienna, Cariformin acidulated, which are the malts, which gives it that kind of medium of the road mouthfeel. It's present. It's not. It can stand up to a lot of hops. And the hops they use are actually quite simple. There's Bravo, Columbus, Allura, and Raku, R-A-K-A-U. And so Allura and...
Can you spell that one more time, please?
R-A-K-A-U. I've never
That
heard of
sounds
these
right.
last two, so I have no... I'm assuming that's where they're getting their dankness from, that really kind of bright. There's a lot of fruited activity going on. Apricot, mango, yuzu was really present on the aftertaste, so yuzu, lemons.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know
like-
if I've tasted yuzu before. If I have, I don't
It's a
recall.
lemon.
think
it's a lemon.
think like lemon, but
You have.
extra.
Extra
Okay.
lemon.
Yeah.
So there's some like peaches and stone fruit on that aromatic, and then it just bounces to more of a sharp acidic mango and yuzu. So there's the dankness is the mango and the apricot, because those are thicker fruits that hold more, and then the yuzu is a bright, more effervescent, sharper note.
I'm getting like it's almost like underripe apricots.
Yeah.
Or a little bit of the tang of like grapefruit almost, but like not grape, just some of that acidity and some of the tartness. Yeah, the other guys are like looking at like.
well,
what
so
the-
for
what
the
are
other
you
side of the
talking-
table, Brian, did your beers taste good?
It was fine.
I liked it. All right, we're done.
Okay.
You guys can
I
continue.
mean, this can art has got like raw or somebody on
it's,
it.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
wild.
it's weighing
No,
a
it's,
heart
it's,
against a feather.
Oh god, it's killing me that I can't remember. The god of the Egyptian god of death.
The Egyptian god of death.
I can't remember his
who
freaking name.
So when you take the boat ride
not raw.
across,
It's not.
it's not. No. So this is
It's Osiris.
Thank you. It's Osiris.
Oh,
It's Osiris.
thank you,
god
Brian.
of death. And so
Gosh, drove me nuts.
so there's a bunch of TV shows and movies that have been about this over the years.
You mean Stargate?
About beer?
all of the above? Most recently, Moon Knight, which I know at least two of us at the table have watched, and there's actually scenes of that.
F. Murray
It's like,
Abraham
yeah.
playing Khonshu, the moon god.
Yeah, so there's when you get weighed, if you're going to go to heaven or hell, they measure your heart against a feather, and your heart weight is based on good or bad deeds, and are you worthy or not? Am I worthy?
They're going to need a bigger feather.
Yes, they are.
Unless
So-
they're a very good person, then it's fine.
Yeah,
That was
it's
the
fine.
joke, Blake. We're not good people.
So
I'm a great
feather.
person.
we should
Certainly not the antagonist of this film.
So we should.
yeah,
we
we're not
should
wearing
message-
bicycle helmets.
His
Beating
heart is
people up.
heavy.
We should definitely there is a little bit of copy on this can, but not a whole lot.
I didn't even see any.
Um,
I mean, I can't read the hieroglyphs. I'm going to
Let's
tell
make
you right now.
Well, Aaron, chop
says
chop,
one
man. It's
pie.
your job.
I know, right?
Let's make Aaron improvise.
Government warning: according to the Surgeon General, women should not drink during pregnancy.
Yeah, Brian's got it. Like,
He's all over
this
it.
sticker is covering up where
Let's
the
make
marketing-
Aaron improvise
Yeah.
copy for this company he's never heard of before.
Oak Union, part of the Oaken Alliance. We make beer that's very hoppy and will strip your tongue out of whatever was on it before.
Yes.
All right, bluff called. Well done, sir.
So there is a tap room. These guys share a tap room with a cidery. Blake and I have been there a few times. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute.
Been a while.
They've recently kind of improved their
been a
recipes and
hot
have started
minute.
canning. We did one of their beers recently for another podcast, and I really wanted to revisit these guys. So they're down basically in the Clackamas area, but they're southeast of 205, way out there.
Oh, that area. Okay.
Yeah, way down
Yeah.
there.
Almost Idaho.
Kind of.
Basically, Idaho.
You could say that.
I apologize to everyone in Central Oregon that was insensitive. I don't understand the geography.
I don't. Bring it on. Let me give you Dan's address. You can beat me up.
Bend exists.
Oh, I love
Bend,
Bend.
Oregon's cool.
So this beer,
John Day exists. No, I'm kidding. Please. go on.
you're not wrong. I loved this beer, and this beer synced up exactly with the movie.
It had a lot of sharpness to it.
That's why I think the first one. Like if we only had the first one, I would have thought it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But this second one linked up so well. It was like as I'm watching and tasting this beer, the movie was enhanced. Like which I feel like is the goal for this podcast is to find the perfect beer to go with whatever movie. So it enhances whatever you're doing.
This is an excellent, I would say it's an excellent pairing. Like,
Yeah,
I think like day to day, I really would honestly prefer the Bad Hombre.
Same.
But for watching this film, the tartness and the hoppiness matched kind of the gratuitous violence that was going on the screen.
And the stylized Berserker rages we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of went through that a few times
I would also say the hoppiness of the aromatics was far worse
in the flavor.
than the flavor.
Yeah.
as a non-hop head.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard beer to drink.
It's not offensive.
It's not a big beer.
Yeah. It's what do you call it, Dan? It's not a first timer beer. Or
It's not a
beginner beer?
starter beer.
Starter beer.
It's not a starter beer, but it's definitely something you can use to transition into enjoying hoppier beer.
Sure.
This is something that's not there's no really strong, weird hop flavors. It's not super so like bitter beer face that you're gonna be like, ugh. No, this actually has a good balance to it. The malts really hold up to the amount of different hop flavors that are going on, because there's a lot of depthness to the hop flavors.
Yes.
There's, especially when you're dry hopping, you're layering, and who knows what they used in the boil and who knows what they used to dry hop. I don't know. That would be a good question for the brewer. If you ever go to a brewery and you have an opportunity to speak to somebody who might know, ask, because that's how you learn. And, it's a cool opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to ask you about this beer and the complexity of it, and why did you make those decisions? Because it's obviously a good decision.
And they'll say, "How'd you get in here? We're closed."
I know, right? That's happened a few times.
No trade secrets.
No trade secrets. But as a home brewer, I
so-
can ask, because it's like, unless you work in the industry or you're a home brewer, you're like, why would you ask that? And you'd be surprised. If I can give you one word of advice, ask about their water profile, what they're doing with that, and if there's a beer that you really like, ask them about the recipe.
Nice.
If the server doesn't know and the brewer's not there, then so be it. But if they are there, hey, it can give you an opportunity. It'll open a door for you to like maybe get a free sample, free beer, or even a free walkthrough of their brewery.
Ooh, I love a walkthrough.
They love that.
I mean,
They're showing off their toys.
Well, no, it's a compliment that you're taking an interest in their product and asking, how was it made and what was
Asking the right questions.
asking the right questions about their design process.
Yep.
If you hated the beer, you wouldn't be asking the questions.
Correct.
So there's an implicit compliment that's involved in there.
Or you're
I think
just
most people would
fooling
receive
them.
that well.
Oh yeah.
Or you're playing them for a fool.
Or
Which happens in this movie.
or you're like corporate espionage. You really work for a different brewer, and you're gonna
Yeah.
right.
Or else Slugsworth to the Willy Wonka fortune, which is a misnomer because Slugworth worked for Willy Wonka. So Dan, I didn't notice any of the acidic notes or the fruits and all that. Does that stuff help with the hoppiness of beers? Does it help kind of balance it out, or does it help enhance it? Or is there no right answer?
There's no right answer, because it
Cool.
depends.
Moving on.
So when you're when you're dry hopping, the objective is to add more aromatics when you open the can. Those dry hopping aromatics drop out pretty quickly. I'm like, they're 2-3 months in the can or the bottle at most. If it's on pressure in a keg, it can last a little bit longer. But when you say, oh, it's fresh hop season, so everything has that really strong fresh hop aromatics to it, they're using fresh leaf hop.
And that's why we occasionally check the date on the bottom of the can or bottle to see, like, oh boy, this tastes kind of off, and look at it. It is a little older.
Yeah, it's like 6 months old instead of 2 months old.
Right.
And
Okay.
I actually did check the dates on the cans, and both of these, well, at least the Oak Union has one, and this was canned just a few months ago. So it is 04-17. Yeah, everyone's like picking their beers up, looking at the bottom of the cans. I'm such a bad influence.
Oh, I spilled my beer on myself. Oh no.
But yeah, check out the dates. If
Canned
you're
on
buying,
April 17th of this year.
yes. So
And we're recording in June. So 2 months.
So if you are
Give or take.
in a store and there are 4-packs not concealed in a box of some sort, or just look at the bottom of the can and see if there's a date on it. Don't drink old beer. Drink something within a few months, and it'll help especially if it's been refrigerated for a lot of that time or some of the time. It allows the beer to maintain its freshness. And this obviously, even if it's 2 months old, still had a lot of aromatics on it. So I applaud them in their canning process to be able to capture that without having off flavors. It was very, even though we drink it out of the can, I could tell that there was at least enough effervescence. There's carbonation on it that held up.
Oh yeah.
So good beer. Can't complain.
Way to go, Oak Union, for your 42 sins.
Yes. Any other last comments before we close this out?
The beer is alive.
The beer is alive.
Aaron, you were very funny this episode. You're funny a lot of episodes, but you were
Well.
very funny this episode. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't remember what I said.
I mean, we'll listen back and you'll hear me cackling. So that's
Oh.
how you'll
A
know.
lot of dad jokes.
How funny, because as far as I know, I'm not a dad.
No, I really like this movie. I'm glad I got to watch it with you guys. I was debating watching it alone. Thought, no, this seems like something you watch with friends.
Yeah,
This
agreed.
is a good like group hang movie. If you want a movie night, get some beers,
this
get
is a
some
movie
pizza.
night. This is
Yeah.
a movie night. You definitely need to be able to put pause on because there were some dialogue. The few dialogues that actually happened, we were talking over it. We're just like, all right, let's stop and go back.
But the
'cause
pace-
we got to hear what they said.
That being said, the pacing is really good, like
Yeah.
really well done. This
Yeah.
movie, the cinematography is beautiful.
There's
the-
not a lot
the
of
choreography.
calm parts to it. That some of the flashbacks are a little slow.
Everything's always a little bit on edge.
yeah. Everything is very leading into the next scene.
It
So-
has this sort of rhythm and driving quality to it that it
Yeah.
does. It just
Yeah.
keeps moving forward, chugging
And
along.
it's got more depth than I would have expected.
I was expecting a very
100%
silly
agree.
action movie, which is why I wanted to watch. Like, oh, this be a fun, like turn your brain off movie. No, I actually am grappling with some stuff. I really like
Gotta
it.
pay attention.
Yeah, I recommend this with reservations of like nobody too young, nobody sensitive to violence or death.
Yeah. The violence is it ranges from cartoony to grotesque.
Yeah.
Gruesome, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you can get a dry hopped ale or something else, if you can't get an Oak
Sharp,
Union
yeah.
42 cents,
Balance and sharp.
yes, something with a little more heft, more body to it.
And I would say the second one was not as sweet as the first one. The second one was a little drier. And I
Yeah,
think that
don't
might
get
have helped
something
a little bit
sweet.
too.
I think I could have a really tangy, like funky, like a sour with this
Yeah, you
movie.
could probably
too.
do a sour with this.
Yeah.
will let you have that. I don't know if I could. I like that take. Listeners, try it and
Try it
call
and
in.
find out. Yeah,
Call
let
in
us
at
know.
555.
At 555 BEER.
Yep.
Yeah, let's not. Anyway, some of us have been hydrating during the course of the film and the course of, I don't know, this podcast anyway. So I don't know, Blake, if as you hydrate, what do you need to do?
If you don't hydrate, you're gonna dehydrate.
There you go.
That's my best attempt at a Sean Benjamin without warming up.
All right. So
Lada.
check out the film. Good film. Watch it with friends. Not necessarily kid appropriate, so be advised.
Yeah.
Find some dry hoppier beer. It doesn't have to be New England juicy. It can be dry and just
And try a sour. See
try
if
a
it
sour.
works
Maybe-
out.
Maybe that'll go with it too, because I think something acidic and strong helps the character
Yeah,
vibe. Because
yeah.
this has a lot of plot twists and turns towards the end, and that helps.
Acidity. Yeah.
Acidity, lots of acid.
Cool smoky visuals.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
As always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this recording are those of the hosts. And this is Dan signing out and thanking you for hanging out and joining us for this wonderful podcast.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, listener. This is Aaron, hoping that you find, like our protagonist, the right red vest to go out and kick ass in.
This is Blake saying, find my letterbox so you can see my review on it. And I'll probably reference this podcast because I love this podcast and I love movies.
Right on.
I like beer.
And this is Brian. Thank you so much for listening, and get yourself some friends and watch some movies.
Go get some friends.
Go get some friends.
Stop listening to podcasts and go talk to people.
Well, keep listening to us.
Well, finish the podcast, then go find someone to watch movies with.
Yeah, and then check us again next week. Same
Yes.
bat channel, same bat time.